The top audio and voice-first industry podcasts. With the continued growth in listening and further proliferation of podcasts, it's hard to keep track of them all. So, here is my humble effort to collect all of the relevant active podcasts that discuss these two topics, and my 2 cents on why you should check them out if you haven't already. P.S. Despite living and breathing the industry, there is always the chance I may have missed one or a few podcasts on the topic. If that's the case, feel free to hit me up on Twitter, I'll be glad to add your input. PPS audio is a broad category, but for the most part, the focus here is on the digital side of audio in media terms, content, advertising, and such. In alphabetical order, here, yeah, that typo is intended, goes all things audio. A weekly podcast recorded live on Twitter Spaces every Wednesday at 3 p.m. ET, 8 p.m. BST. Twitter marketing expert Madeline Sklar and voice tech and audio specialist Susie Cooper talk about the week's developments in social audio. Why you should listen: because the podcast is recorded live on Twitter Spaces, it has an open mic part where other people can chime in on the week's hot topic. As a result, the podcast feels a bit more interactive and definitely richer as more opinions are presented. Listen on Spotify. Listen on Apple Podcasts. Audio branding. Why you should listen: Jody Krangle, a professional voiceover talent, dissects the audio and sonic branding landscape to the smallest details. With expert guests who share their thoughts and experiences, there are plenty of fascinating insights about how sound shapes us in every form. Listen on Spotify. Listen on Apple Podcasts. Bixby Developers Chat. Why you should listen: contrary to its name, the podcast is not solely centered around Samsung's voice assistant. Each new episode features a top-notch guest, thus effectively covering every layer of voice experience and picturing an ever closer vision of voice technology through lively and personal conversations. Listen on Spotify. Listen on Apple Podcasts. Future Ear Radio. Why you should listen: simply put, Dave Kemp hosts the go-to podcast of the hearing tech world. If you're pining for information about innovation in hearables and voice tech, this is the podcast to listen to. Listen on Spotify. Listen on Apple Podcasts. Sound in Marketing. Why you should listen: topic close to my heart. Gina Isham breaks down this untapped world of marketing opportunities in sound. In 15 to 20-minute episodes, she and her guests share fascinating bits of information that are bound to be useful to brands and businesses looking to find a new edge. Listen on Spotify. Listen on Apple Podcasts. Talking Shop. Are you curious about how voice works in marketing? With 60% of people across all surveyed markets being voice users, it's becoming increasingly clear that voice is a valuable marketing tool that should become a part of every brand's strategy right now. Why you should listen: for starters, there is no shortage of actionable insights from this new podcast. Top experts in the field try to demystify consumer behavior and show how the power of voice technology is something more businesses should investigate, just as you should do with this podcast. Listen on Apple Podcasts. The Artificial Podcast. Why you should listen: Nick Myers delves deep into the world of artificial intelligence, with voice first being one of the recurring topics. Other segments besides voice first are explored, usually with guests from respective industries. So if you're a fan of emerging tech driven by advancements in AI, tune in. Listen on Spotify. Listen on Apple Podcasts. The Conversation Design Podcast. Why you should listen: the description pretty much sums up everything you need to know about this podcast. Discussions about the synthesis of several design disciplines that make for a more human-centered design, its blend in marketing, advertising, and more. Listen on Spotify. Listen on Apple Podcasts. The Future is Spoken. Why you should listen: Shyamala Prayega leads meaningful conversations, exploring various issues, challenges, and use cases that cover every aspect of voice technology. Regardless of what your specific interest in voice is, there is something for everyone here. Listen on Spotify. Listen on Apple Podcasts. The Sonic Voices Multicast. Why you should listen: the latest product from the Whitlingo Kitchen. This new concept of podcasting offers a more straightforward stream of information that, if anything, only adds to the value of the inputs from speakers. As of the time of writing, only 2 episodes were published, but it's already an enjoyable experience. Listen on Spotify. Listen on Google Podcasts. The Voice CEO, Beyond Voice. Why you should listen: the description perfectly encapsulates the fresh approach Jose Cotto takes in his microcast, which allows a narrow focus on a singular topic. It works, plus the episodes are easily consumable as they are short. Listen on Spotify. Listen on Apple Podcasts. The Voice of Healthcare. Why you should listen: healthcare is one of the industries where voice tech is making major inroads, and the Voice of Healthcare does an amazing job portraying how cutting-edge technology is impacting the field on a global scale. Listen on Apple Podcasts. The VoiceBot Podcast. Why you should listen. For many, myself included, this is the voice first podcast to listen to. Hosted by Brett Kinsella, the podcast is a part of the much larger VoiceBot ecosystem that covers relevant news and provides commentary, research, and analysis of voice technology and artificial intelligence. In other words, a league of its own in terms of broad knowledge on voice AI and related domains. Listen on Spotify. Listen on Apple Podcasts. This Week in Voice. Why you should listen. The episode's format offers something different and fresh through discussion of the week's multiple news in voice technology and conversational AI with the industry's finest. It works really well as you get to hear insightful and compelling commentary on the latest voice-related developments. Listen on Apple Podcasts. To voice devs. Why you should listen. From developers to developers, for the most part, Mark Tucker and Alan Furstenberg go through a wide range of technical subjects related to voice-first applications. This will likely have a limited appeal to a broader audience but is informative nonetheless. Listen on Spotify. Listen on Apple Podcasts. Voice in Canada podcast. Why you should listen. Terry interviews top leaders, voicefluencers, as he calls them, in the industry, discussing everything from voice-powered hardware to natural language processing and everything in between. The idea is to offer a better understanding of voice assistants, and Terry certainly delivers. Listen on Spotify. Listen on Apple Podcasts. Voice in education. Why you should listen. The intersection of voice tech and education is an interesting one, as it creates meaningful opportunities for teaching and learning. If your interest lies in this field, you'll love this flash briefing hosted by Julie Daniel Davis. Listen on Spotify. Listen on Apple Podcasts. Voice on Voice. Why you should listen. Not quite a podcast but more of an audio newsletter that is still worth checking out. The episodes/flash briefings are mostly under 5 minutes, which makes Voice on Voice ideal for those who want to get the latest on all things voice tech in short sessions. Listen on Spotify. Listen on Apple Podcasts. Voice Spark Live. Why you should listen. Voice Spark Live offers a slightly different approach with its trio of hosts, Nick, Ben, and Emily. There is more focus on Alexa skills, especially games, and practical uses than you'll find elsewhere, and the playful banter between the three and their guests makes the podcast that more charming and entertaining. Listen on Spotify. Listen on Apple Podcasts. Voice Tech Podcast. Why you should listen. Hosted by Carl Robinson, the podcast often veers into highly technical issues with its guest voice tech professionals. Don't worry, the podcast is well worth a listen as it effectively offers a below-the-hood look and a deeper understanding of the underlying technologies. Listen on Spotify. Listen on Apple Podcasts. Voice This. Why you should listen. Human-like interactions between computers and humans are all the rage these days, and the podcast does a great job of getting various conversational technologies closer to the audience, particularly if you're hungry to learn about different applications of conversational AI. Listen on Spotify. Listen on Apple Podcasts. Vux World. We educate business leaders and teams on why and how AI technologies are revolutionizing the way consumers engage with businesses and the internet, why that matters and how to implement it properly. Why you should listen. The host Kane Sims likes to get to the nitty-gritty of voice and conversational AI, which routinely makes for fascinating conversations with his guests. As the focus is on AI-driven customer experience, there is no shortage of actionable insights on how AI tech is changing the way customers engage with businesses. Highly educational, if I may say so. Listen on Spotify. Listen on Apple Podcasts. Honorable mentions. While not strictly in podcast form, some shows and events are too good to overlook due to the wealth of insights they bring. These include Voice Lunch. What started as an informal meeting on Zoom turned into one of the most respectable gatherings of like-minded voice experts and enthusiasts in the world. If you have some time to spare on Tuesdays, make sure to check out Voice Lunch. Voice Talks, the spiritual successor of Inside Voice. Voice Talks is a Webby award-winning talk show featuring leaders and influencers from across the voice tech industry. For anyone applying voice to their brand or business, this YouTube-hosted show is a must-watch. There you have it, plenty of quality podcasts to listen to. In the meantime, I'll try to update the list as often as possible. Viva la audio revolution. Let's connect via LinkedIn.